So mi presentación se titula Opening Heritage Spanish, Tools for Teaching, Adapting, and Collaborating in SHL Classrooms. And one thing that I did want to point out as we're moving forward, in case maybe you are not familiar with different types of licensing, que lo vamos a hablar en más detalle hoy, you can see here that I have picked this license for my presentation, and then later on when we show the image, you'll see what exactly does that mean. Pero si ustedes ven como una imagen, algo así, les vamos a explicar qué es y para qué usarlo. So here you'll find the link to the Google folder. It's the same one that I mentioned before, o también the QR code. I'll take a moment in case anybody wants to retrieve it there. Okay. So to start, I wanted to provide my attribution for this presentation. It was adapted in part by two separate presentations, one given by Dr. Joseli Miners at the 9th Tech Summer Workshop, which we held actually at UTSA in San Antonio en 2023, y otra presentación que tuvimos, de hecho, el mes pasado in the NSSHL 12, which was at Northwestern. So some of the materials that you'll see in here are from those two presentations. Como ya hablaron, Joseli y Flavia, un poco de background sobre TEX. It is part of CORAL, which is the Center for Open Educational Resources and Language Learning. Aquí tienen el enlace. This is hosted by the University of Texas at Austin. There are contributors from 16 universities across Texas, so en todo Texas. Y la doctora Flavia Belpoliti y la doctora Joseli Miners son las co-directoras de este proyecto. Y ya hablamos un poquito sobre la meta principal de TEX, pero para las personas que no tenían conocimiento previo sobre esta organización, quería como darles esa orientación, pero ya lo hicimos. And a little bit about OERs. What are OERs specifically? They are educational materials that are offered freely or mostly freely could be also at a very low cost for anyone to use. And they involve a combination of permissions through an open license. And this is kind of what we're going to be talking about a little bit later on today. You can retain them, reuse them, redistribute them, remix them, which is what we really want to focus on, and also revise them. But you also have to provide attributions and follow the licensing, which is what we saw at the very beginning. Okay, so a little bit about Creative Commons licensing. You can see that they have different levels, right? So all rights reserved or copyrighted material is the least open. And then the most open is if has these different licensing that you will see here, right? Where you're free to use, copy, edit, mix, keep, share, republish, or sell. So these have the least limitations. And then, so you have the entire spectrum here, right? From the least open to the most open. And we'll see different works today that have varying types of licensing. And we'll talk about this a little bit more as we move forward. So, antes de empezar, quería saber de ustedes. Why do you use or why do you want to use OER for your class? Hay muchas diferentes razones, pero yo quería saber lo que ustedes piensan. ¿Por qué utilizar OERs?
Because it provides a free cost for students, something that can save them a lot of money, which obviously cost of textbooks and tuition has gone up, so it helps with that. Also, I think it opens up more critical thinking of how to utilize various resources versus just one set textbook where you only have one resource, I would say.
Okay, that's great.
It allows you to adapt the materials to your student needs. So when you get the textbook, besides being expensive, you have to follow, the curriculum in the textbook, and sometimes it doesn't work with the students that you have.
Exactamente.
¿Me escuchan?
Sí.
Sí, bueno, yo nunca he usado y el propósito es que estoy aquí es porque planeo ofrecer una clase for Spanish speaking quizás el próximo semestre. Yo enseño español como segunda lengua en Community College.
Ajá.
Y entonces necesito, bueno, tengo la idea, pero no tengo quizás necesito la guía y consejos, ¿no? Cómo diseñar las clases para Heritage Spanish.
Ujú,
Y pues estoy aprendiendo aquí qué material se debe usar porque pues no tengo la experiencia previa para poder desarrollar la clase. Por eso estoy aquí y veo que son materiales muy importantes a un bajo costo para los potenciales estudiantes, pero mi propósito también es aquí es para aprender si alguien, por alguno de los colegas que enseñan ya clases para clase con herencia hispana, que me guíe, ¿no? Cómo empezar a diseñar, a escribir what to cover, porque en el college we have to write the outline, right? So
yep.
we need to learn the students' learning outcomes and the course description and how many level of Spanish speaking are there. So I probably want to start with the level 1 intro to Spanish. I don't know how you call that. If it's the same as a word language like Spanish 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I'm excited to see you guys here and learn, and probably also I want to know if there is some grant there to apply for, because it takes time to design a class.
Ujú. Pues espero que esta presentación te ayude y las otras presentaciones que vamos a tener en estos días.
Espero que así sea.
Oh,
Gracias.
and quizás una ventaja también es que when you're looking at, if you have one textbook, in my experience, sometimes Spanish can be antiquated, or maybe sometimes the articles that are there aren't really relevant, right? So I think by having something online and open educational resources, we have more modern use of the language. We have more resources from actual people, especially for native speakers, with their experience as heritage, speaking that's a little bit more modern and not so, from the 1990s or early 2000s. I think that's really important too.
Mhm. Yeah, so we see that a lot of times professors, instructors, educators like to use OERs because it's cost effective and for pedagogical reasons. They can build the materials to be relevant to their students and the place in which they are in, whereas a lot of the textbooks that we see are created for like a generalized use across the country, and not necessarily for your specific students that you have in the university or area that you teach in. So those are like the very generalized reasons, and then there's also some different specific reasons. And people like to sometimes create their own materials because the materials that are already to be found maybe just don't cut it, right, for what their needs are. So we'll see a lot of different types of materials today. I'm going to go through 5 different examples that I found through the text website, and also present the current OER that we are working on with mis colegas y yo. So this is just a general introduction into it. And one way that you can find OER is by using these search engines, right? Google Advanced Search, Creative Commons Search Portal, Merlot, OER Commons. These are great ways to find OERs in general, no necesariamente para español, para cualquier cosa, right? So if you wanted to go to the Google Advanced Search, you would go down here and you can see where it has usage rights. So that's where you would search for different types of open materials. The same things here with the Creative Commons search portal. This will help you find content here. Te dice you can share, use, and remix. The same thing with Merlot. So these are all great resources if you haven't already used them before. Pero yo sé que hoy estamos aquí para hablar sobre el español. So quería también mencionar que tenemos diferentes materiales en español en el sitio web de Coral. And these are just some examples, right? Here it is. So this is the Coral website. This is the website that's hosted through UT Austin, and where text is a part of Coral. So what you can do on this website, si ustedes enseñan otras lenguas o están interesadas en otras lenguas, you have different activities based on the languages that are already here. These are materials that have already been made in these different languages, right? So you're not going to see every language here, just the languages that already have materials. So si hacemos el filtro por el español, we have professional development modules, literatura, gramática, proficiency, different types of archives, right? This is an archive of the Spanish in Texas. Y tenemos diferentes materiales. Esto es for K-12. We're also going to see some that are for the middle school level. So we don't just have materials that are for university level instructors. We have materials that are for pretty much anybody in the, I would say maybe middle school and above. Elementary school is a little bit harder to find, but you will still find some activities there. We also have some oral proficiency levels, ¿no? Me acuerdo que Fabio estaba hablando sobre, ¿no? Los niveles. So this is related to the ACTFL speaking guidelines. I know ACTFL isn't always exactly applicable to heritage learners like it might be to second language learners, but it's a great place to start, right? To start making your own, understanding your own students' profiles. So esa es la primera cosa que tenemos para Coral. Y estos son ejemplos de diferentes proyectos que han hecho, que ya mencioné. Y también tenemos el sitio web de TEX. So, quería darles un par de minutos para revisar el sitio web de TEX. De hecho, lo voy a poner aquí en el chat para que lo vean. Les doy unos minutos para revisar el sitio web. Así se ve en the homepage. Si quieren saber más sobre TEX, you can go to the About. We have resources, professional development, events, participate. Les doy como 2 minutos para verlo. Okay, les voy a dar más tiempo después, pero quería que...
Great stuff.
And this is our new text website, and Flavia and Joseli and their colleagues also in Coral and at UT Austin helped create the website, and it's amazing. They did a great job. Bien, so tenemos el sitio web de TEX y quería hacer highlights de algunos ejemplos que tenemos. So aquí por algunas colegas de hecho que están aquí, we have the Heritage Spanish Professional Development modules. This is just a review of what you can find there. Pero lo tengo aquí también. This is if you would like to have a deeper understanding about Heritage Spanish, you can review these modules here. It tells you a little bit about the modules themselves. You have the different introductions to it. And you can find the coordinators, the authors, right? This is all here. So this is a great way to orient yourself a little bit to understanding different like sociolinguistic approaches. I think that we have also some things about here, right? Yeah, challenges and strategies to creating a heritage Spanish program, some student voices, right? How to incorporate OER, what is OER, what is OEP, open educational practices, right? So this is our first example. I wanted to show the various types of OER and activities. So this may not be student facing, this may not be something that you use with your students in class, maybe unless you are an instructor teaching a grad class, but this is something that you could use for yourself, no? As professional development. Okay. Otro ejemplo, it's a podcast called Latina Stories, created and produced by doctora Elena Faules, que también está aquí en Texas, está en Texas A&M University, San Antonio. It was from, it originally came from a oral history project that she created cuando ella estaba en Ohio, porque antes ella estaba en Ohio State University. And it came from a podcast that was oral narratives of Latinos in Ohio and also Ohio Habla. Pero ahora ella está en Texas. Entonces, los episodios que ella tiene, ahora they are focused on Texas. Her most recent episodes include the Barrio and the Badge, Afro Saberes, no? And then other types of activities as well. Dr. Faules incorporates a lot of her podcasts into the OERs she creates. So there's a great breakdown of how to use that type of multimedia in her projects. And she has 2 OER books. One is focused on heritage learners in the Midwest, and then the other one is called El Español en los Estados Unidos, which I believe are also on the TEX website. So eso es un ejemplo. También tenemos la imaginación, and I chose this one specifically because it deals with elementary students, porque siempre nos hacen la pregunta, ¿qué tal actividades para estudiantes in elementary classes? So I did want to highlight that we do have some activities available that are already working with this age group. And if you find other activities that you're interested in, you can remix them, you can adapt them to be for your level. So aquí puse la foto también de los estudiantes que están hablando en el video, pero puse aquí las estrellas sobre sus caras, just for privacy. But here you have the activity itself, right? So aquí te dice cuáles son los temas, los objetivos. You have a before viewing, during the video, after the video, right? Y aquí tienes la información de la persona que creó esta actividad, ¿no? So it's definitely helpful to see that there's not just for one level, right? You can, and even if you are working at the high school level or working at the university level, you could take the same thing, the same activity, and adapt it to your needs. Bien. And I also wanted to highlight student projects and different lesson plans that students themselves can create to create their own OER materials. This could be something that you create in your class as part of Joseli, Doctora Miner's class at UT Austin. Various HL students participated in this project, right, where they created las noticias y las leyendas. Y luego otro estudiante que tenemos en el doctorado que está aquí presente con nosotros hoy, Marco, creó diferentes lesson plan activities para acompañar los proyectos. So here we have this Google folder. There's an introduction provided here to tell you how to use these materials. Where did it come from? It gives you a little bit of a background on the information, and then you have the different files here where you have the example of the projects as well as various lesson plans that you can use with these materials as well. So these were the original projects that the students made. You can go through these as well, understanding them a little bit better. And then if you wanted your students to do something similar, or if you wanted to do some vocabulary work, you could use this, you could remix it, you could adapt it to your students' needs, but the materials are already here. So we're basically just building off of them and you don't have to start from zero. Bien, ¿cómo vamos? I know these are a lot of different activities. Yo escogí what I thought was a good representation, right, of the materials that we have to show the various levels and to show that there are different types of OER activities. It could be something that you use for your own professional development, something that you use in the classroom, something that you could use even, we also have like syllabi. There is some oral history projects on there. They have examples of the language that you might use when you are working with somebody to sign a consent form, right? So there's some different examples there that we have. So estos son ejemplos que ya están en el sitio web de TEX. Y también quería presentar un poquito sobre otro OER en que estamos trabajando ahora. Se llama, estamos aquí, Comunidades Bilingües e Identidades Regionales de los Estados Unidos. Somos 5 coautoras que estamos trabajando en este OER y tiene como objetivo presentar información sobre cada región de Estados Unidos. Porque lo que hemos visto hasta ahora es que hay muchos OERs that are very place-based. Como mencioné antes, Elena Faules, que tiene ese podcast Latina Stories, ella tiene un OER que es para personas que son del Midwest, ¿no? Como de esta parte aquí de Estados Unidos. Yo también hice un OER que se enfoca en el sur de Texas. There's other ones that focus maybe in el East Coast or the West Coast o tal vez Florida, ¿verdad? So hay muchos OERs que se enfocan en una parte, una región de Estados Unidos. And what we felt that we saw missing from this, a little bit of a gap. Pardon? Sorry, I thought I heard something. Was something that focused on all the different regions of the US. So por eso estamos trabajando ahora en este OER. Y les voy a presentar el primer capítulo. Pero quería como orientarlos un poquito también sobre qué es este proyecto y qué estamos haciendo. I would also like to thank our contributors who have also worked on this project with us as well. Bicho Acevedo, Evelyn Durán Urea, Linda Lemus, Carolina Malgarejo Torres y María Luisa Parra. Okay. So how do we have this broken up? Tenemos 2 volúmenes. We have a capítulo inicial y un capítulo final where we provide an introduction to Spanish in the US and a conclusion or a future of Spanish también en los Estados Unidos. And then we break it up into different regiones. We start in the Southeast and then we move over to the Southeast Central, West South Central, the Southwest, and then we start on the Northeast, East North Central, West North Central, the mountain areas, Pacifics, y finalmente también incluimos a Puerto Rico. Okay, so you'll see all of the states mentioned here as well as Washington, D.C. And the great thing about this project is that anybody who might be using this across the US, maybe they won't find something about their specific town, but they'll at least find something about their state, right? And this helps for different Latinas or Latinos who are living maybe in a state where there is not a historic population of Latinos, but there's a growing population and they want to see themselves represented in the work that they are completing in school as well. So para la organización de los capítulos, y les voy a presentar el primer capítulo, capítulo 1, I wanted to go over the different sections that we have. we introduce the region first. Luego tenemos una sección de lengua viva, sociopolítica, ecopolítica, economía y educación. So you'll see these various topics touched upon in that specific section. Tenemos arte, cultura, identidad, gramática reflexiva, ortografía y por último tenemos una sección al final que tiene soluciones a las actividades. It doesn't have solutions for every activity because some of them are very open, but for the activities that have one specific answer, las soluciones están ahí. Just to give a little bit of a background on what are our goals with this textbook, I kind of mentioned it before, but to expand upon those, we wanted to offer critical and historical perspectives that specifically centered on the role of Latina communities in the US, right? We're wanting to promote bilingual competence and equip students with the tools to challenge ideologies that might impact their ethno-linguistic identities and appreciate the transformative aspects of the Spanish language and Latina cultures at local and national levels. We also tie them back to countries, Spanish-speaking countries across the world. So we don't only focus on Latina communities in the US, but that's our starting point. And then from there, we branch out to different Spanish-speaking communities that you'll find across the globe. Bien. So ahora, this is the moment we've been waiting for, the unveiling of chapter 1. For your review, I do have it here. You'll see it will take you to a folder, like a carpeta. And I just wanted to review a few of the different sections. So como dije antes, la primera cosa que hacemos es la introducción a esta región. You'll see that we always start with different photos that are representative of that area. We first start with the students' knowledge. What do they know about this part of the country? Have they ever been there, right? What about the Latina population in that region? What do you know about it? We provide a background of that region with historical data. We provide different demographic, right, data about the region. We always try to have some comprehension questions to just get the students interested in learning more about this region. If there is an important state or city, we'll provide a little bit of focus on that. And then we always end with a para saber más, right? So in this section, you'll find different either organizations or different information that might be important for the students to follow up on, where a lot of them have to do with the Latina community specifically, or the Latina community is a part of the work that organization does. And I like it because here we don't just focus on one type of organization. It could be a theater, right? It could be where they do bilingual plays. It could be here like the Chamber of Commerce, right? Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Or it could be just an organization that Latinas themselves created where they get together to make food or whatever, have some social hour, right? So this is our first introducción a la región. We also have lengua viva. And then this is going to be where we're going to have activities, right, that are focused on vocabulary, activities that are focused on reading, where students are working on doing like reflective work, they're analyzing images, they're thinking about their own Spanish, right? And they're being introduced to different terms, como los tornados. You see? Also maybe getting introduced to different types of varieties. Aquí hablamos de las variedades cubanas en la Florida. En la parte de sociopolítica, in this case, we analyze social issues. We talk about those, especially those that affect Latina communities in the US. You'll be able to go through and see things related to murales. We also hear, as we go further, talk about different communities. En este capítulo en particular, hablamos sobre Washington, D.C. We talk about los salvadoreños, bolivianos, que están en ese lugar. We also talk a little bit about gentrification and what does that look like. Different community organizations. We talk about arte, cultura, e identidad. Here we talk about Georgia. In this one where there's a Plaza América, the Plaza Central. We have food, we have projects in each one. How does it relate back to the community? We also analyze poesía, right? Provide various types of activities. Y también tenemos gramática. So here, this is our starting point. You'll be able to see where does it, we start with the presente de indicativo. There's a lot of explanation. We try to incorporate memes, something that the students are familiar with. And then we end with ortografía. Right, so as you'll notice, each of these sections provides, they're separated. So if you want to use just one section, you could use only one section. If you're only interested, por ejemplo, en lengua viva, or in the introducción, or the educación, or maybe the gramática, ortografía, you can do that, right? You don't have to only, you don't have to include every activity, because chapter 1 alone is like 90 pages, right? So there's a lot of materials there. There's a lot that you could take and make your own, right? That you want to be relevant to your student or to the place that you are working in. Bien? Ok. Quería darles un poco de tiempo para reflejar y esto es, aquí tenemos las reflection questions. Como les dije, por favor, if you would like to write down your notes, please make a copy. Please make a copy. So, les voy a dar unos minutos, para reflejar un poquito. Y quiero que contesten o que piensen en estas preguntas. How will you adapt the content to align with your course goals and better reflect your students' lived experiences, interests, and language practices? What modifications will you make to ensure the material supports your students' language levels, learning needs, and engagement styles? Which parts of the OER will you remix, replace, or supplement with your own or local resources to make it more meaningful in your teaching context? How will you ensure the material is accessible to all students, including those with limited tech access or disabilities? And how might you involve students or colleagues in revising, co-creating, or giving feedback on the OER to keep it dynamic and responsive? Okay. So, quiero darles un poco de tiempo para trabajar en estas preguntas, para pensar, para reflejar, revisar los materiales que ya presenté. And here you can make a copy, write down your notes, anything that you would like to remember from this session, that you would like to work on further. Okay, creo que ya estamos regresando. Muchas gracias a todos por salir a los breakout rooms. Yo sé que algunas personas no pudieron porque algunos tal vez están trabajando. Pero muchas gracias por su participación y perdón que no mencioné antes. Sometimes we may have a breakout room, but there will be different materials and content to review afterwards. Pero quisiera saber un poquito más de lo que hablaron en sus grupos. ¿Alguien quisiera compartir un poquito de lo que mencionaron?
Sí, sí puedo hablar, Susana.
Sí, bien, por favor.
Ok. Bueno, fue muy interesante la conversación con mis compañeros porque para empezar somos de distintas áreas. Yo me estoy conectando en Arizona. Y yo creo que varios de los compañeros coincidimos en algo, que este libro es la manera en que fue organizado fue brillante porque recolectó todas las experiencias. Es un libro realmente pensado para hablantes de herencia y es interesante ver cómo recopilaron sus experiencias y cómo son representados de una manera positiva en el mismo contenido del libro. Yo personalmente me voy con muchísimas ideas. Todavía me falta revisar este material sobre so the introduction to oral proficiency levels with ACTFL, porque yo enseñé por muchísimo tiempo a nivel universitario, pero ahorita estoy trabajando con juniors y seniors. Y yo creo que lo que yo puedo hacer es un poco tratar de imitar o duplicar estas ideas fantásticas que todas las autoras tuvieron en cada una de las unidades, que es detenerse en la región en particular, buscar el contexto socioeconómico, incluso lingüístico de esa área para sentir que los estudiantes son, para hacer que el material es más auténtico e inclusivo. Y yo creo que eso es una parte muy linda que han hecho muy bien en el libro. Y todos coincidimos que uno, necesitamos más tiempo para revisar los materiales. Dos, que se pueden adaptar de manera casi natural a cada uno de los contextos que estamos utilizando. Pero sí, decidimos que hay un montonal de cosas que revisar y que necesitamos tiempo. Y qué bueno que lo hicieron, porque necesitamos algo como esto. Muchísimas gracias.
Pues gracias a ti por tus palabras, ¿no? Y eso nos da mucho gusto de trabajar en esto, porque también nosotras vimos la necesidad de algo similar así por nuestros estudiantes, por nuestras clases y también tenemos experiencias y perspectivas muy distintas. Y lo bonito de colaborar es que todas las perspectivas pues, se ven, ¿no? Se ven reflejadas en las actividades, ¿no? Y en las lecturas que escogimos y esas diferencias, ¿no? Por eso, ¿no? Nos gusta este trabajo, ¿no? Y muchas gracias, ¿no? Por tus palabras. It makes the late night desveladas worth it. Sí. ¿Alguien más? Sí, vi que alguien más estaba, I think it was, no me acuerdo quién era, perdón, ya no te veo, cambiaron los nombres. But I did see that somebody, oh, was it you, Milvia?
No, Suzanne said we were together, what I was about to say, and I was so happy to see readings about Maryland and DC, where I'm located, and which one of the things that is hard for me on my classes is to find readings or adapting, because I'm adapting material, been adapting a couple of them. And then especially like lately, Jocelyn's textbook have been very helpful. But looking the readings that the students can reflect and see it in their community. Casa, Maryland, of course, even at Maryland, University of Maryland, some students do internship there. The Allison's office, which is very central and very well known in the area, in Baltimore area, and in the DC area, have all those readings that they have. We need more time to go over and read. Thank you.
Yes, and we would love to hear more about your input, any of the resources that you have for that area. You know, you kind of hit the nail on the head there of what our goal was for everyone who uses the textbook to at least see their state, information about their state, where they live, something important there, because they want to see themselves reflected, right, in the materials. It gets them very connected, right, to what they're working on. And I think it helps a little bit more with some of the buy-in for students, right, to have that. Pero bien, I know we have so much to think about. I really just wanted to go through the steps very quickly that I have outlined para que ustedes también, like, saben dónde empezar, right? So the first, the outlines that are the steps that I outlined to review and adapt OER for your classroom can also be found en ese handout que puse en la carpeta. No me deja. Why do you hate me? Here, move this, adapting OER. Y están aquí, right? The steps to review. So I have them listed here, and you're able to put notes as well of anything that you would like to work on. If you would like to work on it while we're going through the steps. Nomás voy a tomar unos minutos porque yo noto que quieren hablar, pero quería revisar esta parte. So, ¿qué es la primera cosa que deben de hacer? Explore and evaluate the OERs that you're finding. Los que presenté yo, o si ustedes están interesados en otro OER que quieren adaptar, pues bienvenido, ¿no? Specifically, think about what is the structure, what are the content, what types of activities are they, and ask yourselves, like, what are the goals of this OER specifically? ¿Para quién fue diseñado? Y, de hecho, quería mencionar también que el libro que les presenté de Estamos Aquí es para un nivel intermedio de estudiantes universitarios, because we felt that middle level would be the easiest, that you could kind of scale it back a little bit, or you could make it a little bit more advanced. So por eso decidimos hacerlo así for nivel intermedio. When you're exploring the OERs, you can use a checklist to see how does it align with your course goals? What is the language level appropriate? Does it represent diverse voices from your community and the students that you have? And specifically, what type of assessment is involved? Bien. So ese es el primer paso. El segundo paso es identificar, right? What are you going to keep, modify, or replace? What fits well with your course as is? What do you not need to change at all? But what needs to be modified, replaced, or added, either for your students' identities, local contexts, or their interests, right? Why are they taking your course? What are they getting out of it? Or your specific course objectives or the teaching style, right? You can ask yourself, what do I need to change to make this feel like it belongs in my classroom? Okay, once you have done those, you can begin your adaptation plan. Start small. Start with just one activity. Start with a section. Start with one unit, right? Something that is manageable, digestible, right? That you can do maybe in one sitting. You can make a copy. You can make a copy of the OER. You can make changes on a worksheet. And think about what type of adjustments need to be made for the level, the register, the support that your students are receiving, any cultural or contextual changes, or maybe some sort of format or tech access considerations, right? What type of LMS are you using, por ejemplo? Bien. And then lastly, what type of collaborations could you be working on? What type of feedback could you receive for your materials, right? You can share ideas. Lo que les voy a dar, ¿no? Tiempo para hablar en otros grupos también. How are you adapting this and why? How does this include student voices, either through feedback or co-creation of new activities or collaboration with other colleagues, right? To improve these materials over time. So esos son los pasos que puse. I wanted to give you time to review, remix, and make it your own. Y quería compartir con ustedes. Quería tener tiempo para compartir antes de que se vayan. Tenemos 25 minutos que nos quedan. So vamos a ver. Let me think about how to do this. Creo que les voy como 10 minutos. 12 minutos. Because what I want you to do is at least apply this in your outline somewhere. Think about what your plan is going to be. How much time do you need to change these things? I'm going to give you some time to work on it. I want to come back in about 10 minutes to have somebody share, and then we will end the session with some other types of ways that you can share your materials or how you can review other OER materials. Okay. So les voy a poner otra vez in breakout rooms, just so that you can please join if you're able to. If you're not able to, we understand. And we will come back.
Una pregunta antes de, can you share a link where we can have access to that specific chapter so that we can
Sí,
you put it so we can retrieve it easily?
it should be in the chat box. But let me go ahead. I'm going to share it again. Lo voy a compartir de nuevo y lo puedo compartir también cuando ustedes están en los breakout rooms. Perdón, déjame encontrarlo. Here it
Thank
is.
you so much.
No, claro que sí. El link. Lo pongo otra vez aquí. Y voy a compartirlo otra vez cuando ustedes están en los breakout rooms. 10 minutos, perdón, yo sé que no es mucho, but I want to have time at the very end to also talk again about sharing materials and to give time for anybody to ask questions and also go through the survey for CPE credits if that's what you're interested in. Bien, muchas gracias. Les voy a poner en los breakout rooms otra vez. ¿Alguien quisiera compartir de lo que hablaron en sus grupos o su plan, ¿no? Para hacer mix de alguna actividad o algún lesson plan, unit o algo que encontraron?
Creo que a nosotros nos ha costado mucho porque casi todo el tiempo lo hemos dedicado a explorar una de las secciones y no nos ha dado tiempo a casi plantear modificaciones. Yo lo que comenté, estábamos viendo la introducción a la zona Atlántico y yo quería modificar lo que se presenta de Florida, intentaría modificarlo y hablar de Maryland y de la zona de Baltimore. Lo que haría yo.
Pues es un plan. Por lo menos ya sabes tal vez algo que quieres modificar. ¿Alguien más? Ya saben lo que quieren modificar. ¿Vieron otra cosa? ¿Vieron otro OER? ¿O revisaron el capítulo 1 de Estamos aquí?
Hola, soy Verónica. Yo estaba en el grupo con Diego y yo estoy en Dallas, Texas, y lo que le comentaba yo era como yo estoy con niños de Junior High School, también me tendría que enfocar al lugar que más conocen, con el caso de Florida, y construir primero el vocabulario, porque a veces estos niños hablan el español, lo entienden, pero cuando es vocabulario ya más académico, a veces lo tienen en inglés, no en español. Entonces tendría que primero construir el vocabulario en español, de darle mejor la palabra en inglés y luego construir en español todo lo que involucra la lección que voy a ver y luego ya empezar a crear sobre algo que ellos ya están familiarizados. En este caso, la mayoría de los estudiantes han ido a Florida o conocen Miami, la playa, y empezar a construir de ahí, porque es lo que ya es familiar para ellos, enfocarnos de primero completamente en el vocabulario.
No, eso sí es buena idea, ¿no? Pero ya por lo menos tienes ahí algunas ideas. Gracias por compartir.
Gracias a ustedes. Buena información, muy interesante y me gusta cómo está enfocado a algo que llama la atención a los estudiantes. No es tan complicado.
Sí.
Stephanie, ¿van a querer ustedes que nosotros individualmente mandemos the filled out forms de regreso?
Filled out
Para-
forms de qué? Oh, del handout?
Like all of these things that we're answering,
Oh,
modifications.
that's for
and stuff.
you. That's
That's
for
for
you.
us. You don't
Mhm.
you don't want the feedback yourself.
There will be some a request for reviewers, but if there
Oh, okay.
but the idea of this is for you to have your own plan that you will
Yeah.
follow. So
Got it.
sí.
Got
Y de hecho sí perdón.
No, aparte de eso tenía yo una pregunta. Habíamos mencionado en una de las cosas que tengo yo en mis clases bueno, nada más he enseñado un año Heritage, pero una de las cosas que pasa en mi escuela es que nos pusieron no nada más heritage speakers, pero también English language learners en esa misma clase. Entonces tenía ahí una mezcla de heritage y English language learners hispanos, que tienen necesidades muy distintas.
Sí.
Entonces, una de las cosas que quiero hacer es encontrar la manera de conectar esos dos puntos. And I just want to throw that out because it's something I'm thinking about.
Yeah. ¿En dónde estás?
Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas.
In Little Rock. Okay. Yeah. And so I think a great place to start is just in your area, right? One thing that you can do, and we have some of these materials already in the site, is understanding the profiles of your learners that are in your classes. And I'm sure you already have a great understanding of the students themselves, but understanding also their bilingualism on the various levels, right? Como habíamos mencionado, creo que era Verónica, ¿verdad? Like they have different levels, not just in their English, but also in their Spanish. They have different academic experiences versus home experiences. And so some of your students, depending on their age, because no me acuerdo like what grade you teach, they might have some academic Spanish already there if they completed schooling in a different country. It just depends so much on the background of your students. And I think starting with their levels and then going from there to see what did they want to get from the classroom as well, like what are the students' motivations for taking the course, and then you can kind of pair those things along with the different levels, the different expectations of your curriculum, right? I know in Texas, I don't know that much about Arkansas, but in Texas at the K-12 level, we have TEKS, right? So your teaching has to also be aligned to the TEKS, which is like the standard that Texas has. And depending on what class you teach, some people might also have to incorporate like standardized testing, or some classes will prepare you for, right, taking those, the different levels, right, for students to be able to get college credits, etc. See.
Marco, I think that one thing that, as an English learner and a heritage learner, really, at both ends in my lifetime, one thing that I think both of those two groups that you mentioned share is the need to actually improve their grammar. So I think that if you could create more lessons based on that, both of those groups could really benefit, because the English learners could actually improve, right, in English as they are learning the English, and the heritage learners definitely need to, most of them have not had grammar as part of their learning. That would be my suggestion anyways.
Yeah, a lot of Perdón, ¿alguien estaba hablando?
Yo quisiera de pronto adicionar algo. Creo que con la pregunta que él ha hecho, es importante tener en cuenta y comprendo el hecho de que hay estudiantes herederos y hay estudiantes nativos. Y nuestros estudiantes nativos están llegando con múltiples niveles de competencia en la lengua, ¿cierto? Entonces, pienso yo que es importante enfocarnos. Muchos de nuestros grupos están combinados, tanto de estudiantes de herencia con diferente multiplicidad de niveles de bilingüismo o diglosia, y hay muchos estudiantes nativos igualmente que están llegando con diferentes niveles de competencia. Entonces creo que sería valioso enfocarnos en términos de qué pueden hacer nuestros estudiantes con la lengua, a nivel de lectura, a nivel de escritura, a nivel oral, qué pueden hacer, y crear, si no es posible crear grupos diferentes, clases diferentes, crear estaciones en las cuales podamos hacer esa diferenciación y proveer a los estudiantes de diferente material o diversificar el material, hacerlo diferente de manera tal que podamos obviamente apoyar a los estudiantes es llegarles a su nivel de proficiencia en la lengua, es decir, o sea, qué pueden hacer con la lengua más que en términos de gramática, más en términos de vocabulario, es qué puede hacer con esa gramática, qué puede hacer con ese vocabulario, qué puede comprender, cómo puedo yo aumentar el nivel de conocimiento lingüístico a nivel de lengua académica que el estudiante necesita para que llegue al nivel esperado. Y con base, cuando hablamos de nivel esperado, creo que es importante tener en cuenta estándares específicos. A mi parecer, y en lo que tengo de experiencia con clases de hispanohablantes, pues Axel no me parece el más conveniente para tener como estándares, porque se enfoca principalmente a lo que es segunda lengua y queda perfecto para un español como segunda lengua, pero creo que es importante revisar de pronto otros estándares como estándares como Language Arts que hay en cada estado, los de Common Core, por ejemplo, y mirar estándares o los lineamientos que tiene WIDA en términos de qué puede hacer el estudiante a nivel de lengua, qué podemos trabajar con el estudiante para que aumente, mejore su nivel de competencia en la lengua. Eso sería lo que yo adicionaría aquí en este momento. Gracias.
Sí. No, y es buen punto también. Y me gustaría hablarlo más. Lo único es que ya se nos acaba el tiempo. Perdón. Quisiera hablar de esto todo el día si pudiera. Pero quería mencionar antes de que nos vayamos que ustedes tienen la oportunidad también de compartir sus materiales y esto es del sitio web de TEX. Estamos aquí en the resources page. Si ven aquí, share your materials, les da el proceso de cómo hacer esto, ¿no? Aquí los diferentes pasos y cómo añadir también la licencia de Creative Commons para que ustedes puedan también compartir sus materiales como OERs, right? With the licensing differences. So esto es una oportunidad. Luego también otra cosa que pueden hacer es become a reviewer para diferentes tipos de OER. En esa misma página tienen la oportunidad de saber cómo, ¿no? Cómo ser reviewers for different OERs. I have reviewed an OER myself y también we are in the process of requesting reviewers. So if anyone would like to review, estamos aquí. Aquí tenemos the form. I will see how I can send this out to you. If anybody is interested in working with us to review the text, el capítulo que les presenté, you have the QR code here or the request for reviewers. Lo voy a poner también en el chat box para las personas interesadas. We would love to hear from you, get your feedback on how to improve our OER, and especially if there's something que nos falta, algo que nos falte. I know I was hearing different organizations que tal vez no incluimos en la parte de Maryland. Nos encantaría poner ahí los enlaces o esa información. We do have that request up. Y por último, the survey for CPE credits. Si ustedes necesitan esos créditos, the Continuing Professional Education, favor de llenar esta encuesta. Lo voy a poner también en el chat box. Y así es como ustedes van a recibir los créditos que necesitan para esta sesión. So ya está. Y esto es el final de mi presentación. Muchas gracias por acompañarme hoy y hablar sobre OERs, hablar sobre nuestro proyecto. Estoy muy agradecida también por la conversación que tuvimos y cualquier cosa que ustedes necesiten, voy a escribir mi email en el chat box si alguien quisiera mandarme un correo electrónico.
Una pregunta rápidamente. Cuando dices reviewers, ¿ustedes reciben, son gente que le manda a ustedes reviews, or are you going out and finding stuff to review?
So it could be in the specific request that I gave, we are the authors and we are requesting the public or other professors to review either sections, chapters, or like a certain part of the book that I showed you. Estamos aquí. But if you go to the text website and you request to be a reviewer there, it could be for other types of OER and not that specific book.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Stephanie, I have a question if we have time. We do?
Maybe 1 minute.
Okay, so I was just going to ask, how robust do the materials that we upload to the OER have to be? And then also related to that, what is the job of the reviewer? So let's say I upload one activity, just one activity. As a reviewer, would you go over it and send it back and say, hey, listen, this needs to be a little bit more robust, you need to add, or would the reviewer's job just be to see where it fits into the OER platform? Or
So the only time that I have reviewed anything, it was a whole textbook that would be used for a course. And there's a rubric that text provides to the reviewer to go through that material. So if it's just one activity, I think it really depends on what is the objective or the goal of that particular, whatever the OER is, activity, unit, lesson plan, syllabi, that somebody is requesting to be reviewed. So it would just be, you would get the comments and feedback of the person reviewing based on the rubric. Yeah, and so whatever their feedback may be, it could say, you could develop this further, or I think it's missing this. But it would really just kind of depend on how that person fills out the rubric. And if you're including all of the information, maybe in an introduction about what is this activity, unit, lesson plan, syllabi, whatever the case may be, what is the objective? No sé si quieren añadir algo, Roseli o Flavia.
I just posted the rubric that we use. It's a very generic one. And again, it will depend on the size of the material. Sometimes the activities are truly short, maybe it's a lesson plan, sometimes it's a full book, so you can adapt the rubric depending on the material that you receive. Basically, it's shared work, because one of the issues probably you know already is that OER, one of the areas that people criticizes is that we don't have enough review processes or peer review processes. And so we're trying at this point to really focus on that. And so all materials that you will find in our website, those are being reviewed already. So it's part of creating really awareness of OER as a material that is as valid as any other publication that we can find.
Thank you.
No, thank you all. And we do, if you look in the schedule, we do have a break from 10:30 to 11. And then we will see you all again at the next session.